The CEO said, "Give me a baby within a year or I'll divorce you." 9 months later, she was blessed with twins and shattered his world. A beautiful story for my beautiful family. Don't miss Chapter 7. It holds a wonderful surprise. Let's begin with love. Scott Boland didn't make requests. He issued mandates, and tonight, over champagne neither of them had touched, he delivered the cruelest one yet. 1 year, Rashada. Give me a baby, or I'll divorce you. The words hung in the air between them like a death sentence. Outside their penthouse windows, the city sprawled in glittering indifference, but inside, Rashada felt the floor drop away beneath her feet. She gripped the edge of the dining table, her surgeon's hands, hands that had held beating infant hearts, hands that had saved countless lives, now shaking uncontrollably. "Excuse me?" "You heard me perfectly well." Scott's voice carried that infuriating calm, the same tone he used when discussing furniture or vacation plans. "We've been married 5 years. That's more than reasonable. My mother agrees." "Your mother?" The laugh that escaped Rashada's throat was jagged. "Wrong. Of course Colette has opinions about my womb. This isn't about her. This is about us. About legacy. About what a marriage is supposed to produce." He leaned back in his chair, so comfortable in his certainty. "I've given you everything. This home, the freedom to pursue your little surgeries at the hospital, the prestige of my name. All I'm asking is that you fulfill your end of the bargain." "My little surgeries?" Rashada's voice dropped to a whisper. "I'm chief of pediatric surgery. I've published groundbreaking research. Last month I saved a baby everyone else said would die. But that's little to you? It's admirable, truly." He waved his hand dismissively. "But it doesn't continue the Boland bloodline. That requires something more fundamental from you." She stared at this man she'd married during a whirlwind romance when his intensity seemed passionate instead of suffocating. When had his eyes turned this cold? When had she become livestock instead of a wife? "And if I can't?" The question tasted like poison. "What if it doesn't happen in your prescribed timeline?" Scott reached into his jacket with practiced ease and withdrew a folded document. The paper whispered against the marble table as he slid it toward her. "Then we'll both be free to find more suitable partners. I'm not cruel, Rashada. You'll be compensated generously." Compensated. She touched the papers with one finger, unable to believe what was happening. "You're negotiating my fertility like a merger. I'm being practical. 1 year from tonight. Surely that's achievable for a woman your age?" Something inside Rashada cracked. "Not broke, not yet, but splintered. I need air. We should discuss the details. I need air." She stood so abruptly her chair crashed backward. "I can't breathe in here with you." She fled to the bedroom, her heels clicking against imported marble like a countdown. Behind her she heard Scott pick up his phone, his voice shifting to warm honey. "Tomorrow night? I'd enjoy that immensely. The Grandview as usual?" A woman's laugh, bright and cruel, through the speaker. "No, Rashada won't be joining us. She's so dedicated to her hospital work, you understand. Sometimes I think she loves those children, more than she could ever love her own, more." Laughter, intimate, familiar, the laughter of someone who already knew his touch. Rashada pressed her forehead against the bedroom door and felt the last piece of her hope shatter into dust. She wanted to scream, to rage, to storm back out there and demand to know when he'd stopped loving her. But her body had gone numb, frozen in this moment of brutal clarity. 5 years. 5 years of trying to be enough for a man who measured her worth in ovulation cycles and empty cradles. She moved to the bathroom on autopilot and locked the door. From behind the towels in the cabinet, she pulled out the paper bag she'd hidden there this morning. Hope had made her stupid enough to buy another test on the way home from the hospital. Hope had whispered that maybe this month would be different. 3 minutes later, she stared at the single line. Negative. Always negative. Rashada slid down the marble wall until she sat on the cold floor, the test still clutched in her shaking hand. Through the door, she could hear Scott's phone conversation continuing, his voice warm and engaged in ways he never sounded with her anymore. "She's very career-focused, Ingrid. Sometimes I wonder if she even wants children at all. Ingrid. So her replacement already had a name. The test clattered from Rashada's fingers onto the tile. That single condemning line seemed to mock her. You're broken, you're failing, you're not enough. But she wasn't broken. Deep in her core, beneath the pain and humiliation, Rashada knew the truth. For 2 years, she'd been secretly visiting fertility specialists, enduring treatments alone while working impossible hours. 2 years of hormone injections in hospital bathrooms, of calendars marked with cycles and failures, of hope that died monthly like clockwork. She'd never told Scott. How could she? When he'd made it clear that her value depended entirely on her reproductive success. The phone conversation ended. She heard his footsteps approach the bedroom, pause, then retreat to his study. Not the bedroom. Never the bedroom anymore, unless it was the scheduled times when conception was statistically optimal. Even then it was clinical, mechanical, another item on his efficiency list. Rashada pulled herself up, using the sink, and stared at her reflection. Dr. Rashada Williams Boland, daughter of Bishop Matthias Williams, who'd preached about dignity and grace under pressure. She'd stood in operating rooms and made impossible decisions with steady hands. She'd saved children who everyone said were already dead, but she couldn't save her own marriage from a man who saw her as breeding stock. She unlocked the bathroom door and walked back into the bedroom. Her phone sat on the nightstand, and she picked it up with trembling fingers, scrolled through her contacts until she found her best friend, Dr. Amara Okonkwo. A text from earlier today waited. Happy anniversary, sis. Remember when you two couldn't keep your hands off each other? Treasure these moments. Love you. Treasure these moments. Rashada typed back, need to see you tomorrow, urgent. Then she walked to Scott's study and opened the door without knocking. He looked up from his desk, irritation flashing across his handsome face. I'm working. Rashada, I need to know something. Her voice came out steady now, surgical. This woman you're meeting tomorrow, Ingrid, is she my replacement? Or have you already replaced me and you're just waiting for the paperwork to be finalized? For one heartbeat, something like shame flickered in his eyes. Then it died, replaced by that maddening calm. Her name is Ingrid Thornwell. My mother introduced us at the charity gala you missed because of an emergency surgery. He closed his laptop deliberately. She understands what family means, what legacy requires. She's not distracted by career ambitions. I see. Rashada nodded slowly, absorbing the confirmation like a knife between her ribs. And does Ingrid know she's auditioning? Or does she think you're actually interested in her as a human being? Don't be vulgar. It doesn't suit you. No, what doesn't suit me is being given an expiration date like spoiled food. She stepped into the study, and he actually leaned back, as if her anger carried physical weight. You want honesty? Here's mine. You're a coward, Scott Boland. Too weak to end this marriage yourself, so you're making me the villain. Making me fail your impossible test so you can leave with your conscience clean and your reputation intact. That's not what I'm... 1 year? She cut him off savagely. You want your baby in 1 year? Fine, but don't you dare pretend this is about love or family or anything noble. This is about your ego and your mother's poison and your pathetic need for control. She turned to leave, then paused at the doorway. And Scott, Ingrid Thornwell is welcome to you. I hope she enjoys being measured and weighed and found wanting, because that's all you know how to do anymore. That night, Rashada sat by the window and watched the city lights blur through her tears. Somewhere out there, women were celebrating anniversaries with joy instead of ultimatums. Somewhere wives were cherished for more than their reproductive organs. Somewhere, but not here. Never here. As dawn broke over the skyline, Rashada made a decision. She would not break, would not beg. Whatever came next, she would face it with the same strength she brought to impossible surgeries. But first, she needed to know exactly what she was fighting. She waited until Scott left for his morning run. Then, with hands that had stopped shaking, she went through his jacket pockets, something she'd never done in 5 years of marriage. The hotel receipt was folded small, tucked carefully in the inner pocket. The Grandview Hotel, presidential suite, recent enough to still smell like betrayal. Rashada held the receipt up to the morning light and felt that crack inside her widen. Not break, not yet, but the foundation was crumbling. She photographed the receipt and sent it to Amara with 3 words. "He's already gone." The response came within seconds. "I'm coming over." "No, I have surgery this morning." "Meet me for lunch?" "I'll be there." "Rashada, I'm so sorry." Sorry, such an inadequate word for the death of a marriage. Rashada got dressed, put on her brightest lipstick, and went to work. Because babies needed saving, and she was still exceptional at her job, even if she was failing at the only one her husband valued. Chapter 2. The Breaking Point. Dr. Amara Okonkwo was pacing the hospital cafeteria like a caged lioness when Rashada arrived for lunch, her braids swinging with each agitated turn. One look at her best friend's face told Rashada that her brother Terence had already called with the news. "I'm going to kill him." Amara's voice was low and dangerous. "I swear before God, I will end that man." "Please don't." Rashada slid into the booth, exhausted despite the morning's successful surgeries. "I need you out of prison and in my corner. Then I'll ruin him another way. I'll tell everyone at the next hospital fundraiser what he's doing. Let him show his face when the entire medical community knows he gave his wife a breeding deadline while sleeping with another woman." Amara. 1 year. Who does that? Who looks at their spouse and says, "Reproduce or I'll replace you"? Amara slammed her palm on the table, making their coffee cups rattle. "And he's already auditioning your replacement." While making these demands, Rashada closed her eyes briefly. The morning's surgery, repairing a hole in a newborn's heart, had required every ounce of her concentration. Now facing the wreckage of her personal life, she felt hollowed out. "I made an appointment," she said quietly, "with a divorce lawyer." "Good. Terence knows the best." "With a fertility specialist, Dr. Eliana Kemp." The silence that fell between them was deafening. Amara sank into the booth across from Rashada, her anger replaced by something worse. Pity. "No, Rashada, no. I have to try. I have to know that I did everything possible before I walk away." Rashada wrapped her hands around her coffee cup, seeking warmth that wouldn't come. "Otherwise, I'll always wonder if I gave up too soon." "You're not giving up. He's the one who abandoned this marriage." Amara leaned forward intensely. "You've been secretly seeing specialists for 2 years. 2 years of treatments and shots and hope and disappointment, all while working yourself half to death. What more can you possibly do?" I can try one more time. With the best doctor in the city. With every option available." Rashada's voice was hollow. "And if it doesn't work, then I'll know. I'll have certainty instead of this horrible wondering." Amara studied her for a long moment. "And what about Scott? What about the fact that he's already moved on?" Then he'll miss everything, if there even is anything to miss." Rashada laughed bitterly. "Wouldn't that be something? Finally getting pregnant right as he's walking out the door? The universe has that kind of twisted sense of humor. The universe is cruel, not funny." Amara reached across the table and grabbed Rashada's hands. "Promise me something. Promise that no matter what happens, pregnant or not, you'll leave him. He doesn't deserve you. I promise. One way or another, this ends soon." They sat in silence for a moment, the cafeteria bustling around them with the controlled chaos of hospital life. Rashada envied these people their normal problems: difficult patients, long shifts, budget cuts. Her problems felt apocalyptic in comparison. "When's the appointment?" Amara finally asked. "Tomorrow morning, early. I'm driving you." "You don't have to." "I'm driving you," Amara repeated with steel in her voice. "You're not doing this alone anymore. I don't care what Scott thinks, or what his mother says, or what anyone believes. You're my sister, and I'm not letting you face this by yourself." That evening, Rashada came home to find Scott in the living room, working on his laptop. He looked up when she entered, and something in his expression made her stop. "We need to talk about logistics," he said. "Logistics," she repeated flatly. "For the baby. I've been thinking about the timeline. You'll need to reduce your surgical hours, especially later. We should start interviewing nannies now, so we have someone in place. My mother has excellent recommendations from families she knows." "Stop," Rashada held up her hand. "Just stop talking. I'm trying to be practical. You're trying to plan a life that doesn't exist yet, with a baby that might never come." Her voice cracked. "Do you hear yourself? You're not even asking if I'm okay. If we're okay. You're just jumping straight to nannies and your mother's opinions." Scott closed the laptop slowly. "I thought you'd appreciate having a plan. I'd appreciate having a husband who gives a damn about me as a person." She dropped her purse on the floor. "But that's not what this is it? This was never about me. Just about what I can produce for you." "That's not fair." "Fair?" Rashada laughed bitterly. "You want to discuss fair? Where were you tonight, Scott?" "Really?" His jaw tightened. "I told you. Late meetings." "Liar." She pulled out her phone and showed him the photo someone had sent her, Scott and Ingrid at an intimate table, his hand covering hers, both of them laughing like lovers. "You can't even stop seeing her long enough to pretend you care about this marriage." He stared at the photo, then at her. No denial, no apology. Just that infuriating calm that made her want to scream. "Ingrid understands certain realities about life that you refuse to accept." "Like what?" "That women are interchangeable, as long as they fulfill their biological duties. Like that marriage is about more than romantic feelings. It's about family, legacy, building something that lasts beyond ourselves." He stood, and she saw the coldness in his eyes fully now. "I've given you every opportunity to be part of that vision. If you can't or won't, then yes, I've been exploring other options." "Other options?" The words tasted like ash in her mouth. "I'm your wife, Scott, not a business strategy. Then act like my wife. Give me what a wife is supposed to give." The slap came before she could stop herself. Her palm connected with his cheek with a crack that echoed through the penthouse. They both froze. Rashada had never hit anyone in her life. Her hands were for healing, for surgery, for saving lives. But rage had moved through her like lightning, and now Scott's cheek bore the red imprint of her fury. "Get out," she whispered. "This is my home." "Get out!" The scream tore from her throat. "Get out before I do something we'll both regret more than that." Scott grabbed his jacket and keys, his expression thunderous but controlled. At the door, he turned back. "You have 11 months left, Rashada. I suggest you start thinking seriously about your priorities." The door slammed behind him with a finality that shook the walls. Rashada sank onto the couch and stared at her hand, the hand that had just struck another human being. Shame and satisfaction warred in her chest. She'd violated everything she believed in, and yet some dark part of her reveled in finally making him feel even a fraction of the pain he'd inflicted on her. Her phone rang. Her father, Bishop Matthias Williams. "Baby girl?" His warm voice was a lifeline in the darkness. "Your brother told me what's happening. Talk to me." And just like that, the dam broke. Rashada told him everything. The ultimatum, the affair, the years of secret fertility treatments, the hotel receipts, the slap. Words poured out of her like poison she'd been holding too long, burning her throat but needing to escape. Her father listened without interruption until she finished with a sob that shook her entire body. "Come home," he said gently. "Come home to your family. You don't have to fight this battle alone." "I can't, Daddy, not yet. I have to try one more time. I have to know." "Know what, sweetheart?" "That I'm not broken. That my body can do what it's supposed to do." She wiped her eyes with trembling fingers. "If I leave now, I'll always wonder if I could have made it work. If I could have been enough." "You're not broken, Rashada. You hear me? That man has convinced you that your worth is tied to something you can't control, and that's a lie straight from the pit of hell." His preacher's voice rang with conviction. "But I know you. I know you need to do this your way. So I'll be here waiting, praying every day, until you're ready to come home." After they hung up, Rashada sat in the silence and let herself feel everything: the grief, the rage, the shame, the fear, the desperate hope that still lived in her chest despite everything. Tomorrow she'd put the mask back on. Tomorrow she'd be strong. But tonight she let herself break into 1,000 pieces on the floor of a penthouse that had never felt like home. The next morning, Amara picked her up before dawn. They drove through empty streets to Dr. Kemp's clinic, a discreet building in a wealthy neighborhood where desperate women came to chase impossible dreams. The waiting room was full of couples holding hands, whispering encouragement, presenting united fronts against infertility. Rashada sat alone among them, and the other women's pitying glances felt like knives sliding between her ribs. Rashada Williams? A nurse appeared in the doorway with a clipboard and a professional smile. Amara squeezed her hand. "I'll be right here, no matter how long it takes." Dr. Eliana Kemp was a tiny woman with steel-gray hair and kind eyes that had seen every kind of heartbreak. She reviewed Rashada's extensive file with a deepening frown. "You've been through quite a journey," she said finally. "Multiple rounds of ovulation induction, timed protocols, even 2 cycles of more aggressive interventions. Your hormone levels are normal. Your ultrasounds show healthy organs. There's no medical reason this hasn't worked. Then why hasn't it?" Rashada's voice was small, childlike. "Sometimes there isn't a reason we can identify. Bodies are mysterious, even to those of us who study them for a lifetime. Stress can be a significant factor. And I see here your chief of pediatric surgery working long hours. That alone could impact everything. So what do you recommend?" Dr. Kemp leaned back in her chair, studying Rashada with those kind, knowing eyes. "Honestly, I recommend you take a real break. Reduce stress. Focus on your own health and well-being. These treatments are incredibly hard on your body, Rashada. You need rest, not more interventions." "I don't have time for rest. I have 11 months. The doctor's eyebrows rose sharply. 11 months for what? And Rashada found herself explaining the ultimatum, the timeline, Scott's demands and betrayals. She watched Dr. Kemp's expression shift from curiosity to shock to barely contained anger. "That's unconscionable," the doctor said when she finished. "Rashada, fertility doesn't work on deadlines. The stress of this situation alone could be preventing conception. Your body might be protecting you from bringing a child into this toxic environment, but you can help me? There's something else we can try?" Dr. Kemp sighed deeply. "There's always something else. More aggressive protocols, higher hormone doses, additional procedures. But I have to tell you, pushing your body harder when it's already under extreme stress isn't the answer. It's not even ethical for me to recommend it." "Please," Rashada whispered, and she hated how her voice broke. "I need to try, just one more time. I need to know I did everything possible." The doctor studied her for a long, uncomfortable moment. "This isn't about having a baby, is it? This is about proving something to a man who doesn't deserve your devotion." The truth of it hit Rashada like a physical blow. "Maybe," she admitted. "But I still need to try, please." Dr. Kemp pulled out a prescription pad with obvious reluctance. "1 cycle. The strongest protocol I can safely recommend. But Rashada, after this, whether it works or not, I want you to seriously consider what you're doing to yourself. No baby is worth destroying yourself for, and no man is worth this kind of sacrifice." They scheduled the treatment cycle, reviewed the intense protocols, discussed the risks and side effects. Rashada left with a bag full of medications and instructions, feeling like a soldier preparing for a war she might not survive. Amara was waiting in the lobby, and one look at Rashada's face told her everything. "You're doing it. One more try. That's all. And if it doesn't work, then I'm done. With the treatments, with the marriage, with all of it." Rashada clutched the medication bag like a lifeline. "But I need to know I tried everything. I need that certainty." They drove back to the hospital in heavy silence. When Amara dropped her off, she grabbed Rashada's arm with fierce intensity. "Promise me you'll call if you need anything. Middle of the night, middle of surgery, doesn't matter. Promise." "I promise." That afternoon, Rashada performed 3 complex surgeries with steady hands and steadier resolve. She was brilliant at this, saving lives, fixing broken hearts, giving parents back their children against impossible odds. This was her worth. This was what she was built for. Not for Scott's timelines and ultimatums and cold calculations. When she finally left the hospital after dark, exhausted but satisfied with the day's victories, she found a text from Scott waiting. "I'll be out of town for the next week. Business. We'll talk when I return." No apology for their fight. No acknowledgement of her pain or the slap or anything. Just another absence in a marriage full of them. Rashada typed back, "Enjoy your trip." Then she went home to the empty penthouse and started the medication protocols Dr. Kemp had prescribed. Shots she gave herself with practiced efficiency in the bathroom mirror. Pills that made her nauseous and dizzy. Hormones that turned her emotions into a battlefield where hope and despair waged endless war. This was her last attempt. Her final try at becoming what Scott demanded. And if it worked, she'd have a baby with a man who'd already abandoned her. If it didn't work, she'd have certainty that she'd done everything humanly possible before walking away. Either way, the marriage was already dead and rotting. She just didn't know which outcome would hurt more. Chapter 3. Twin Daggers. The medication made everything worse. Rashada's body rebelled against the hormones flooding her system. Headaches that felt like her skull was splitting. Nausea that kept her bent over toilets between surgeries. Mood swings that left her weeping over coffee commercials. But she persevered. Because this was the last time. The final attempt. 2 weeks into the protocol, she stood in a hospital bathroom, giving herself another injection when someone knocked on the door. "Dr. Williams Boland, there's an emergency. We need you in OR3 immediately." Rashada capped the needle, smoothed her coat, and became the surgeon again. The woman falling apart could wait. The babies who needed saving couldn't. The surgery lasted 6 hours, a set of conjoined twins, connected at the chest, each with their own struggling heart. The parents had been told it was impossible, that their daughters wouldn't survive separation. But Rashada had studied the scans for weeks, had a plan, had hope. When she finally stepped back from the table, 2 separate babies breathed on their own for the first time in their lives. "Miracles," whispered her surgical nurse, tears in her eyes. "You create miracles, doctor." But Rashada couldn't create the miracle she needed most. She went home that night to find Scott had returned early from his trip. He was in the living room with his mother, Colette Boland, a woman who'd never hidden her disdain for Rashada. "There she is," Colette said with false sweetness. "Working late again, I see. Scott was just telling me about your little arrangement. 1 year to produce an heir. Very reasonable, I think." "Mother," Scott began, but Rashada cut him off. "Get out of my home." Colette's perfectly painted lips curved into a smile. "Technically, dear, it's my son's home. You're just living here until you fulfill your purpose or fail completely." "I said get out." Rashada's voice was ice. "Before I call security and have you removed. You wouldn't dare try me." Rashada pulled out her phone. "I've had a very long day saving actual lives. I don't have patience for whatever poison you're here to drip in your son's ear." Scott stood, looking uncomfortable. "Rashada, that's enough. She's my mother, and she's the reason you treat me like breeding stock." Rashada turned her fury on him. "Every cruel word, every impossible expectation, it all comes from her. She's been whispering in your ear since we got married, hasn't she? Telling you I'm not good enough, that I'm too focused on my career, that I'm failing you." Colette stood with regal disdain. "I simply helped my son see certain truths he was too infatuated to recognize." "You were never the right choice, Rashada. Wrong background, wrong priorities, wrong everything." But Scott insisted, "and I've spent 5 years watching you prove me right." "Mother, please, Scott tried again, but both women ignored him. You want to know the truth? Rashada stepped closer to Colette, and the older woman actually stepped back. I've been trying to get pregnant for 2 years. 2 years of treatments and specialists and hormones and hope, all while working myself to exhaustion and dealing with your son's betrayal. And you know what I realized? Even if I give you your precious grandchild, it will never be enough. You'll find something else I'm doing wrong, some other way I'm failing. Well, you said it yourself. 2 years of trying and still nothing. Perhaps your body knows what your mind won't accept. You're not meant to be a mother. Colette's smile was cruel. Some women are built for it. Others, like you, are better suited to other purposes. There's no shame in accepting your limitations. The words hit like bullets. Rashada felt something inside her crack wide open. Get out, she whispered. Both of you. Get out of my sight before I do something unforgivable. This is my son's home. Get out! The scream tore from Rashada's throat, raw and primal. Get out, get out, get out! Colette gathered her purse with theatrical dignity. At the door, she turned back. 1 year, you said? Darling, I'd start looking at alternatives if I were you. Perhaps a nice apartment somewhere quiet where you can focus on your little surgeries without the pressure of trying to be something you're... She left in a cloud of expensive perfume and cruelty. Scott stood frozen, looking between the door and Rashada. Don't, she said before he could speak. Don't you dare defend her. Don't you dare tell me she means well, or that I'm overreacting. That woman is poison, and you've been drinking it for so long you can't even see what it's done to you. She's still my mother. And I'm still your wife. Or I was, before you decided to auction me off like livestock. Rashada's voice broke. Do you even hear what she said to me? Do you care? Scott ran his hand through his hair, looking tired. She can be harsh, but nothing. She just told me I'm not meant to be a mother. That my body knows I'm defective, and you're standing there making excuses for her. Rashada laughed bitterly. This is what our marriage has become. Your mother insulting me, you betraying me, and me destroying myself trying to meet impossible standards. I didn't ask her to come tonight. She just showed up because you told her about the ultimatum. You told her about our private business, our marriage, our problems. What else have you told her, Scott? Does she know about the treatments, the fertility issues? Have you been sharing all my failures with her so she can feel superior? His silence was answer enough. Rashada sank onto the bed, shaking. She'd never been violent before Scott, never thrown things or slapped people or screamed until her throat was raw. What was she becoming? Her phone rang. Her brother Terence. Rashada, Amara just called me. She said you're in the hospital. That you almost lost the twins. His voice was careful, worried. Talk to me, sis. And for the second time that day, she shattered. The words poured out, the hemorrhage, the terror, Scott's cold reaction to the twin news before the crisis, the lamp, everything. Come stay with us, Terence said immediately. Nia's already making up the guest room. The kids would love to have Auntie around. You don't have to stay there. I can't, not yet. The doctors want me on strict bed rest. Moving would be too risky right now. Then we'll come to you. You're not doing this alone. Over the next days, Rashada's world shrank to the hospital bed. Complete bed rest meant nurses helping her to the bathroom. Meals brought to her, no work, no movement. Just lying still and praying her daughters would stay inside long enough to survive. Scott tried to visit, but the medical staff had strict orders. Family only during critical recovery, they told him. And Amara had made sure she was listed as Rashada's healthcare proxy and primary family contact. She needs rest, not stress, Amara told Scott bluntly when he protested. You've caused enough damage. But through the hospital room window, Rashada could see Scott in the waiting area. He didn't leave, didn't go to work, just sat there day after day, waiting for updates he wasn't allowed to receive directly. On the third day, her father arrived. Bishop Matthias Williams sat beside her bed and held her hand without speaking, just sat there solid and present until Rashada started crying. I'm so scared, Daddy. I know, baby girl. But you're strong. Those little fighters are strong too. William's women don't give up easy. What if I lose them? What if all of this was for nothing? Then you'll survive that too. You'll grieve and heal and keep living. But we're not there yet. Right now we're here, and they're here, and that's what matters. Dr. Kemp finally allowed Rashada to go home after a week, but the restrictions were brutal. Complete bed rest. No stairs, no work. No stress. Someone had to be with her at all times in case of emergency. Your surgical career will have to wait, Dr. Kemp said bluntly. These babies need you to survive to viability first. After that, we'll reassess. But right now, Rashada, your only job is to lie still and let them grow. Scott hired a nurse to stay with her during the day, an older woman named Keisha Albright, who'd worked in obstetrics for decades and took no nonsense from anyone. I've seen women carrying quintuplets have easier pregnancies than you, Keisha said on her first day, reviewing Rashada's chart. You're going to listen to every word I say, or I'll tie you to this bed myself. Understood? Understood. The days blurred together. Rashada lay in bed and felt her surgical skills atrophy, felt her career slip away, felt her identity shrink until she was just a vessel for two stubborn lives. Meanwhile, Scott's world was crumbling in ways he couldn't control. One evening, he came home looking devastated. Theodore Ainsworth pulled his investment today, he said quietly, standing in the bedroom doorway. Keisha had allowed him a brief visit. He said he doesn't do business with men who dishonor their wives. Good, Rashada said from her bed of pillows. The contract was worth millions, and I lost it because, he looked at her finally, because word got out about the ultimatum, about how I've treated you. Actions have consequences. You're just finally experiencing yours. More contracts fell through over the following weeks. Business partners distanced themselves. The scandal of how he'd treated his pregnant wife was spreading through their social circles like wildfire. One evening, Scott came to the bedroom and stood in the doorway. Looking lost, Judge Elwood Patterson called today. My father's oldest friend. Scott's voice was hollow. He said my father would be ashamed of me, that I'm destroying everything he built, not with poor decisions, but with how I've treated you. He said Dad built his legacy with integrity, and I'm tearing it down with arrogance. Rashada said nothing. Everyone's pulling away. People I've known my whole life. They all know what I did, and they're disgusted. He sank into the chair beside her bed. I'm losing everything. Welcome to my world. I lost everything the night you gave me that ultimatum. My peace, my sense of self-worth, my career. At least you still have your health. Rashada, I'm tired, Scott. I'm tired of your epiphanies. I'm tired of watching you realize what you've done like it's some great surprise. You made choices. Now you live with them. That night, Colette called. Rashada heard Scott's conversation from the bedroom. No, Mother, you're not welcome here until you apologize. I don't care if... A pause. She's my wife and the mother of my children. You disrespected her, and that's unacceptable. Colette's voice sharp even through the phone. I see. She's finally got you under her thumb now that she's pregnant. I raised you better than... You raised me to treat women like possessions. You raised me to value bloodlines over humanity. Scott's voice rose. Do you have any idea what you've done? The poison you've put in my head since I was a child. More screeching from Colette. I don't care what you think anymore. You're not meeting these babies until you change. And maybe not even then. He hung up, came to the bedroom door but didn't enter. I'm sorry, he said to the darkened room, for all of it. I know it doesn't change anything, but I'm sorry. Rashada didn't answer. Words were cheap. She'd heard his apologies before. 3 days later, Scott received a call from the hospital. Colette had collapsed during another angry phone call, this time with one of her society friends, ranting about Rashada. A massive stroke. She was in critical condition. I should go see her, Scott said, but he didn't move from the chair beside Rashada's bed. Yes, you should. She's still your mother, after everything she's said about you, about our daughters. Because if you don't, you'll regret it. And I have enough guilt in this marriage without adding that. Rashada looked at him steadily. Go, see your mother. Make your peace. Scott went. He came back hours later, looking like he'd aged a decade. She's conscious, but can barely speak, partially paralyzed. He sat down heavily. But she managed to say one thing clearly. What? That I deserved this. All of it. That my father gave her the same ultimatum when they were young. Have a baby in 1 year, or he'd divorce her. His voice was hollow. She never wanted children. Dad demanded an heir or threatened to leave. So she had me, and she resented every moment of being my mother. Rashada felt ice slide down her spine. Scott, she said, she made me into her. Cold and calculating and unable to love properly. She said it was her greatest revenge against my father, turning his precious son into the same monster that ruined her life. Tears streamed down his face. I'm the product of the same ultimatum I gave you, and she hated me for it every day of my life. That's why she's been so cruel to you. She saw herself in you and wanted you to suffer like she did. That's why you gave me the deadline. You were just repeating what you knew. I didn't even realize I was doing it. I thought I was being strong, being a man, building a legacy. He looked at his hands. I was just perpetuating a curse. They sat in silence for a long time. Your mother is wrong about one thing, Rashada finally said. These babies won't be resented. I'm furious at how they came to be, furious at this whole situation. But them, I already love them. I'm fighting to keep them alive, even though it's destroying me. That's the difference between me and Colette. You're a better person than both of us. No, I'm just a better parent than she was, which isn't saying much. Colette died 2 days later without regaining consciousness. The funeral was small, attended mostly by people who felt obligated. Scott stood by the grave looking lost, and Rashada watched from the car where Keisha had insisted she stay. She did this to herself, Keisha said, watching through the window. Spent her whole life bitter and angry, and it killed her in the end. Don't you go the same way? I'm trying not to. You love those babies growing in you. Yes, more than anything. Then that's all that matters. Everything else is noise. That evening, Scott came to the bedroom with something in his hand. I found this in my mother's things. A letter my father wrote her before he died. He held it out. He apologized for the ultimatum, for forcing her into motherhood, for destroying their marriage. He said his greatest regret was not loving her the way she deserved. He wanted to warn me never to make the same mistake, but he died before he could. Rashada took the letter, read the faded handwriting. An apology decades too late. He tried to fix it at the end, Scott continued. But the damage was already done, and I've done the exact same thing to you. Yes, you have. Can you ever forgive me? Rashada looked at him for a long moment. I don't know. Ask me again when our daughters are born safely. When I'm not terrified every moment that I'll lose them. When I can think about something other than survival. Fair enough. He left her alone with her thoughts and her growing belly and the 2 lives that had become her entire world. Outside, thunder rumbled. Another storm was coming, and Rashada, lying in the darkness, placed her hands on her stomach and whispered promises to her daughters. I don't know what comes next, but I promise you this, you will be loved, protected, cherished. Whatever happens between your father and me, you will always be wanted. Always. The babies moved under her hands, growing stronger every day despite the odds. And despite everything, Rashada smiled. Chapter 4. The Empire Cracks. The ambulance sirens screamed through the night as Rashada clutched her belly, blood soaking through her clothes. Scott sat beside her in the back, his face drained of all color, hands shaking as he held hers. Just hold on, he kept repeating. Hold on, Rashada, please. She couldn't respond. The pain was too intense, the fear too overwhelming. At 24 weeks, her daughters were barely viable. If they came now, their chances of survival were terrifyingly small. Dr. Kemp met them at the emergency entrance, already in scrubs. Partial placental abruption, she announced after a rapid examination. We've got to stop this bleeding now, or we lose all three of them. The next hours were a blur of monitors, medications, desperate interventions. Rashada felt her body fighting against itself, trying to expel the babies while she willed them to stay. Finally, mercifully, the bleeding stopped. "You're stable," Dr. Kemp said, exhaustion evident in her voice. "The babies are still showing strong heartbeats. But Rashada, this is your final warning. Complete bed rest from this moment forward. No exceptions. Any stress, any movement beyond absolutely necessary, and we're back here losing them. My surgeries are over. For now, maybe for the rest of this pregnancy." Dr. Kemp's expression was stern. "Your colleagues will cover. Your career will wait. These babies won't survive another crisis like this." Scott stood in the corner of the hospital room, looking smaller than Rashada had ever seen him. When the medical team finally left them alone, he moved to her bedside. "I almost lost you. Lost all of you," his voice cracked. "And it would have been my fault. Yes, it would have been." He flinched at her honesty but didn't argue. Rashada sank onto the bed, shaking. She'd never been violent before Scott, never thrown things or slapped people or screamed until her throat was raw. What was she becoming? Her phone rang. Her brother Terence. "Rashada, Amara just called me. She said you're pregnant. With twins." His voice was careful, worried. "Talk to me, sis." And for the second time that day, she shattered. The words poured out. The diagnosis, Scott's reaction, his mother's cruelty, the lamp, everything. "Come stay with us," Terence said immediately. "Nia's already making up the guest room. The kids would love to have Auntie around. You don't have to stay there." "I can't, not yet. I need to see Dr. Kemp again tomorrow, get blood work done. And I'm scheduled for surgeries this week. Rashada, you're pregnant with high-risk twins after years of fertility treatments. You need to slow down. I can't. If I stop moving, if I stop working, I'll fall apart completely." They talked until Rashada's breathing steadied. When they hung up, she called Dr. Kemp's emergency line. "Rashada, what's wrong?" "I'm spotting. Just a little, but I'm spotting. Get to the emergency room now." "I'll meet you there." Terror, like she'd never known, gripped Rashada's chest. She grabbed her keys with shaking hands and headed for the door. Scott appeared from his study. "Where are you going?" "A hospital." "I'm spotting." His face went pale. "I'll drive you." "No, I'm driving you." His voice held an edge she'd never heard before. "Don't argue. Let's go." The drive was silent, except for Rashada's ragged breathing. She kept her hand pressed to her stomach, whispering desperate prayers. "Please don't take them. Please, I just found them." Dr. Kemp met them in the emergency room, and Scott was relegated to the waiting area while they examined Rashada. The ultrasound showed both heartbeats still strong, but there was a small area of concern, the beginning of what could become a serious complication. "Your blood pressure is dangerously high," Dr. Kemp said gravely. "Rashada, stress can cause this. You need complete rest. No work, no arguments, no stress at all, or we could lose them both. I have surgeries scheduled. Cancel them. Your colleagues can cover. These babies need you to prioritize them right now, or they won't survive." The words hit like a hammer. Rashada had spent her entire adult life saving babies, and now she was the one whose babies needed saving. How long? "Bed rest. Starting immediately. Possibly for the entire pregnancy. That's months. I can't. My career, your career will be there. These babies won't be if you don't take this seriously." Dr. Kemp's expression softened. "I know this is hard. I know you've worked your whole life to get where you are. But right now, they need you more than any patient does." When Rashada emerged from the examination room, Scott jumped to his feet. "Are they okay?" "For now. I'm on complete bed rest. Doctor's orders." His relief was visible, and something about it made her angrier. He got to look relieved while her entire world crumbled. "I'll take care of everything," he said. "Whatever you need. What I need is for you to have never given me that ultimatum. What I need is for the past year not to have happened. But we don't get what we need, do we? They drove home in silence. Scott helped her to bed, and she hated needing his help, hated being weak, hated everything about this situation. Over the next week, Rashada's world shrank to the bedroom. She called the hospital and explained she needed medical leave. Her colleagues were supportive, shocked, concerned. She was missing the surgeries she'd trained years to perform, missing the work that defined her, all to incubate Scott's heirs. The bitterness grew like a tumor in her chest. Scott tried. She'd give him that. He brought her meals, helped her to the bathroom, sat with her in the evenings. But every kind gesture felt hollow when she remembered his betrayal, remembered Ingrid, remembered the ultimatum. "I want you to know," he said one evening, sitting in the chair beside the bed, "I told my mother about the twins, and I told her she's not welcome here anymore unless she apologizes to you and changes her behavior." Rashada looked up from her book. "You did what?" "She was wrong. What she said to you was cruel and unacceptable. I should have defended you immediately. I'm sorry I didn't. What brought on this revelation? Fear that stress will kill your precious heirs?" He flinched. "That's not fair, isn't it? You're only being decent now because I'm finally doing what you demanded. Producing children. If I wasn't pregnant, would you have stood up to your mother?" His silence was damning. "That's what I thought." Rashada returned to her book. "Thank you for the gesture. But it's too little, too late." The weeks crawled by. Rashada's world became ultrasounds and blood pressure checks and counting heartbeats. The twins were growing, strong and determined. But the pregnancy was taking its toll. One evening, Scott came home looking shaken. "What?" Rashada asked from her prison of pillows. "I lost the Ainsworth contract today. Theodore Ainsworth himself called to tell me he's pulling all his investments." Despite everything, Rashada felt a flicker of concern. "Why?" "Because word got out about the ultimatum, about how I've treated you." Scott sank into his chair, looking lost. "He said he doesn't do business with men who dishonor their wives. Said his own wife went through fertility struggles, and he'd never dream of treating her the way I've treated you." Rashada said nothing. "That contract was worth millions. And I lost it because," he looked at her finally, "because I've been a monster to you. You're just realizing this now." "I've been realizing it gradually. Watching you risk your health for these babies. Watching you give up your career. Watching you suffer." His voice cracked. "I thought I was being practical, logical, but I was just being cruel." "Yes, you were." "I don't know how to fix this." "You can't. Some things, once broken, can't be repaired." Rashada placed her hand on her growing belly. "But you can be a better father than you were a husband. That's all I'm asking now." Another week passed, and Rashada woke to find Scott on the phone in heated conversation. She couldn't hear the words, but his tone was angry. When he hung up, his face was ashen. "My father's oldest friend, Judge Elwood Patterson, just called. He said," Scott's voice was tight, "he said my father would be ashamed of me, that I'm destroying everything he built, not with business decisions, but with how I've treated you." "Your father's dead. His opinion doesn't matter anymore. It matters to me. He built his legacy with integrity, and I'm tearing it down with arrogance." Scott moved to the window, his back to her. "Everyone's pulling away. Business contacts, family friends, people I've known my whole life. They all know what I did. Good. Maybe public shame will teach you what private conscience couldn't." He turned to her, and she was shocked to see tears in his eyes. "I'm losing everything. Welcome to my world. I lost everything the night you gave me that ultimatum. My marriage, my peace, my sense of self-worth. At least you still have your health and your career." "Oh, wait," she laughed bitterly. "I don't have those anymore either." "Rashada, I'm tired, Scott. I'm tired of your epiphanies and revelations. I'm tired of watching you realize what you've done like it's some great surprise. You made choices. Now you live with them." That night Colette called. Rashada heard Scott's conversation from the bedroom. "No, Mother, you're not welcome here until you apologize. I don't care if—" A pause. "She's my wife and the mother of my children. You disrespected her, and that's unacceptable. Colette's voice sharp even through the phone. I see she's finally got you under her thumb now that she's pregnant. I raised you better than you raised me to treat women like possessions. You raised me to value bloodlines over humanity. Scott's voice rose. Do you have any idea what you've done? The poison you've put in my head since I was a child? More screeching from Colette. I don't care. You're not meeting these babies until you change, and maybe not even then. He hung up. Came to the bedroom door but didn't enter. I'm sorry, he said to the darkened room. For all of it. I know it doesn't change anything, but I'm sorry. Rashada didn't answer. Words were cheap. She'd heard his apologies before, but later that night, when she woke to stabbing pain in her abdomen, it was Scott's name, she screamed. He burst through the door, saw the blood on the sheets, and his face went white. I'm calling an ambulance. Hold on, Rashada. Just hold on. As the paramedics loaded her onto a stretcher, Rashada gripped Scott's hand with desperate strength. Save them, she gasped. Whatever it takes, save my babies. I will, he promised. I swear I will. But some promises, like some marriages, were made to be broken. Chapter 5. The Unraveling. The emergency room erupted into controlled chaos around Rashada. Hands pressed, monitors beeped, voices shouted medical terms she understood too well. She lay on the gurney, watching the ceiling tiles blur past. 42 in this hallway. She counted mechanically, while strangers tried to save the lives growing inside her. Dr. Kemp appeared above her. Mask already on, eyes serious. Rashada, listen to me. Partial placental abruption. We've stopped the bleeding for now, but you're going straight to intensive monitoring. The babies are still showing heartbeats, but this is critical. How critical? Rashada's voice was barely a whisper. One wrong move and we lose them both. Maybe lose you too. Dr. Kemp gripped her hand. You're a doctor. You know what this means. Absolute bed rest. No exceptions. Any stress, any exertion, and this becomes catastrophic. They wheeled her to a private room with more monitors than she could count. Scott tried to follow, but Dr. Kemp stopped him. Family waiting room. She needs rest, not visitors. I'm her husband, and she's my patient. Waiting room, now. Rashada spent 3 days in the hospital with monitors strapped to her belly, listening to her daughter's heartbeats like a prayer she couldn't stop saying. Because they were daughters, Dr. Kemp had confirmed it during an ultrasound. Twin girls, fighting for life at barely 12 weeks. Amara visited daily, sitting beside the bed and reading aloud from novels to fill the terrifying silence. Terence came with his wife Nia and their children, bringing normalcy and laughter that felt like medicine. Her father, Bishop Matthias Williams, arrived on the 3rd day and sat in the chair beside her bed without speaking. Just sat there, solid and present, until Rashada started crying. I'm so scared, Daddy. I know, baby girl. But you're strong. Those little fighters are strong too. William's women don't give up easy. What if I lose them? What if all of this was for nothing? Then you'll survive that too. You'll grieve and heal and keep living. But we're not there yet. Right now, we're here, and they're here, and that's what matters. When Dr. Kemp finally allowed her to go home, the restrictions were brutal. Complete bed rest. No stairs, no work, no stress. Someone had to be with her at all times in case of emergency. Your career will have to wait, Dr. Kemp said bluntly. These babies need you to survive to viability first. After that, we'll reassess. But right now, Rashada, your job is to lie still and let them grow. Scott hired a nurse to stay with her during the day. An older woman named Keisha Albright, who'd worked in obstetrics for decades and took no nonsense from anyone. I've seen women carrying quintuplets have easier pregnancies than you, Keisha said on her first day, reviewing Rashada's chart. You're going to listen to every word I say, or I'll tie you to this bed myself. Understood. Understood. The days blurred together. Rashada lay in bed and felt her surgical skills atrophy, felt her career slip away, felt her identity as Dr. Rashada Williams shrink until she was just a vessel for 2 stubborn lives. Scott tried to be present, but his world was crumbling too. More contracts fell through. Business partners distanced themselves. The scandal of how he'd treated his wife was spreading through their social circles like wildfire. One evening, he came home looking devastated. Ingrid's pregnant. Rashada's blood ran cold. What? She claims it's mine. She's threatening to go public unless I pay her off. Is it yours? I don't know. Maybe. We were together a few times before I ended things. He sank into the chair beside her bed. She's demanding money to stay quiet. Give it to her. What? Pay her off. Make her go away. I don't care about the money and I don't need this stress. Rashada's hand went to her belly protectively. My daughters don't need it either. Scott agreed, and a week later the scandal exploded anyway. Ingrid went to the press, claiming she was pregnant with Scott Boland's child while he was forcing his wife to breed on a deadline. Except she wasn't pregnant. The whole thing had been an elaborate scam. She'd faked the pregnancy test, fabricated ultrasound images, planned the whole thing with a rival company to destroy Scott's reputation. The revelation should have brought relief. Instead, it brought tabloid photographers to their building, reporters calling at all hours, Scott's name dragged through mud he'd partly earned. "I'm ruined," Scott said one night, sitting in the darkened bedroom. "My reputation, my business, everything. You ruined yourself," Rashada said quietly. "This is just the consequence catching up. You don't sound sorry." "I'm not. You made choices, Scott. You hurt me, humiliated me, treated me like property. Did you think there wouldn't be consequences?" I thought, his voice broke. I thought I was being practical, building something lasting. I thought that's what men did. Men love their wives. Men cherish and protect. Whatever you thought you were doing, it wasn't that. He was quiet for a long moment. "My mother called today. What did she want?" "To tell me this is all your fault. That you've brought shame on the Boland name. That I should divorce you immediately and cut my losses." Rashada waited, her heart heavy. "I told her to never contact me again." She looked at him in shock. "What? I told her she was poison. That she'd poisoned my father's life and then poisoned mine. That she made me into a man I'm ashamed to be." Scott's hands shook. "She had a stroke. Right there on the phone. Just collapsed. Oh my God, she's in the hospital now. Stable, but the doctors say stress triggered it. Her blood pressure spiked during our conversation. And you blame me?" "No." Scott looked at her finally. "I blame myself for letting her control me for so long. For letting her hatred of you become my cruelty to you. For everything. She's still your mother, Scott. You should go see her." "Why?" "So she can tell me again how I've failed. How you're the wrong woman. How I should leave you and the babies." Because she's dying, maybe. Because you'll regret it if you don't. And I have enough guilt in this marriage without adding that." Scott went to see Colette the next day. He came back 3 hours later, looking like he'd aged years. "She's conscious. Partially paralyzed. Can barely speak." He sat down heavily. "But she managed to say one thing clearly." "What?" "That I deserved this, all of it. That she gave me the same ultimatum my father gave her when they were young." His voice was hollow. "She never wanted children. My father demanded an heir or threatened divorce. So she had me. And she resented every moment of being my mother." Rashada felt ice slide down her spine. "Scott." "She said she made me into her. Cold and calculating and unable to love properly. She said it was her greatest revenge against my father, turning his precious son into the same monster that ruined her life." Tears streamed down Scott's face. "I'm the product of the same ultimatum I gave you, and she hated me for it every day of my life. That's why you gave me the deadline. You were just repeating what you knew. I didn't know I was doing it. I thought I was being strong, being a man, building a legacy." He looked at his hands. "I was just perpetuating a curse." They sat in silence for a long time. "Your mother is wrong about one thing," Rashada finally said. "These babies won't be resented." "I'm furious at how they came to be, furious at this whole situation. But them, I already love them. I'm fighting to keep them alive, even though it's destroying me. That's the difference. You're a better person than I am. No, I'm just a better parent than Colette, which isn't saying much. Colette died 3 days later. The funeral was small, attended mostly by people who felt obligated. Scott stood by the grave looking lost, and Rashada watched from the car where Keisha had insisted she stay. She did this to herself, Keisha said, watching through the window. Spent her whole life bitter and angry, and it killed her in the end. Don't you go the same way. I'm trying not to. You love those babies growing in you. Yes, then that's all that matters. Everything else is noise. That evening, Scott came to the bedroom and stood in the doorway. I need to tell you something. What now? My father's old partner, Judge Elwood Patterson, visited me today. He said my father confessed something to him before he died. Scott's voice shook. My father regretted giving my mother that ultimatum, regretted forcing her into motherhood. He said it destroyed their marriage and made my childhood a nightmare. He wanted to warn me never to make the same mistake, but he never did warn you. He died before he got the chance, and I made the exact same mistake anyway. Scott moved closer. Rashada, I'm so sorry. I'm sorry for the ultimatum, for the betrayal, for treating you like you were disposable. I'm sorry for all of it. Sorry doesn't fix this, I know, but it's all I have. He knelt beside the bed, and she'd never seen him so broken. I'm losing everything, my business, my reputation, my mother. The only thing I have left are these babies, and you. And I don't deserve any of it. No, you don't. Can you ever forgive me? Rashada looked at him for a long moment. I don't know. Ask me again when our daughters are born safely? When I'm not terrified every moment that I'll lose them? When I can think about something other than survival? Fair enough. He left her alone with her thoughts and her growing belly and the two lives that had become her entire world. Outside, thunder rumbled. A storm was coming, and Rashada, lying in the darkness, placed her hands on her stomach and whispered promises to her daughters. I don't know what comes next, but I promise you this: you will be loved, protected, cherished. Whatever happens between your father and me, you will always be wanted. The babies moved under her hands the first time she'd felt them kick, and despite everything, Rashada smiled. Chapter 6, The Precipice. The storm hit at midnight. Lightning split the sky, and thunder shook the penthouse windows, while Rashada lay in bed trying to breathe through contractions that weren't supposed to be happening yet. Keisha! Her scream cut through the storm's roar. The nurse appeared instantly, took one look at Rashada's face, and started moving with practiced efficiency. How far apart? 5 minutes. Maybe less. It hurts, Keisha, it hurts so much, and it's too early. They're only 32 weeks, it's too early. Hush now. Let me check. Keisha's examination was quick and thorough. Her expression darkened. We're calling an ambulance. You're in active labor. No, this can't be happening. Scott! Keisha's voice boomed through the penthouse. Get in here now! He burst through the door in pajamas, hair wild. What's wrong? She's in labor. Real labor. Twins at 32 weeks means emergency C-section. Call an ambulance now. Scott grabbed his phone with shaking hands, while Keisha tried to keep Rashada calm. Listen to me, honey. Those babies are fighters. They've made it this far. They'll make it through this. But you need to stay calm. Breathe with me. But Rashada couldn't breathe, couldn't think, couldn't do anything but feel her body betraying her daughters. I'm sorry, she sobbed. I'm so sorry. I tried to keep you safe. I tried. You did everything right. Sometimes babies just decide to come early. Stubborn little things. Keisha wiped Rashada's face with a cool cloth. Just like their mama. The ambulance ride was a blur of sirens and pain, and Scott's white face hovering above her. They're going to be okay, he kept saying. They have to be okay. Dr. Kemp met them at the hospital, already in scrubs. But when she saw Scott following the gurney, her expression hardened. Family waiting room. I'm her husband, and she's my patient in crisis. You've caused enough stress. Waiting room. Dr. Kemp turned to Amara, who'd appeared from nowhere. You have her medical proxy? I do. Good, you can come. Him? No. Scott looked gutted, but Amara's expression was fierce. "You heard the doctor." Waiting room. They wheeled Rashada away, and she caught a glimpse of Scott standing alone in the hallway, looking small and lost. Good, some dark part of her thought. Let him feel helpless like I've felt for months. The operating room was cold and bright and terrifying. Rashada's medical knowledge became a curse as she understood every complication, every risk, every way this could go catastrophically wrong. "Talk to me," Dr. Kemp said, as they prepped her for surgery. "What are you feeling?" "Terrified. What if they can't breathe on their own? What if their lungs aren't developed enough? What if they're strong like their mother? What if they're fighters?" Dr. Kemp's eyes were kind above her mask. "You've saved countless babies, Rashada. Now let us save yours." The anesthesia made everything fuzzy. Rashada felt pulling and pressure but no pain. Heard the medical team communicating in that calm, coded language she knew too well. Then a cry. Thin and reedy, but there. "Baby A is out," someone announced. "Female, 3 pounds 2 ounces, Apgar 7. 7, not perfect but alive. Breathing. Another minute of pulling." Another cry, even weaker. "Baby B, female, 2 pounds 15 ounces, Apgar 6. 2 daughters." 2 tiny lives pulled from her body and whisked away to the NICU before she could even see them. "Are they okay?" Rashada tried to sit up, but hands pressed her down. "They're being assessed. You'll see them soon. Right now, we need to focus on you." But focusing on herself felt impossible when her babies were somewhere else, fighting battles she couldn't fight for them. The surgery continued. Dr. Kemp's expression shifted from focused to concerned. "She's hemorrhaging. Get me 4 units now. Hemorrhaging." The word echoed in Rashada's fading consciousness. She was bleeding out while her daughters fought for life in the NICU. "Stay with me, Rashada," Dr. Kemp commanded. "Don't you dare check out on those babies now. They need their mother." But the darkness was so inviting, so peaceful. No more pain, no more fear, no more fighting. "She's coding!" someone shouted. "Get the crash cart!" The last thing Rashada heard before the darkness swallowed her was her own voice, whispered, "Save them. Please save my babies." Scott sat in the waiting room and fell apart. His hands shook. His breath came in gasps. He'd never been afraid before, not really. Fear was for other people. He'd always been in control, always known the outcome, always had a plan. But now his wife was dying and his daughters might die, and it was all his fault. "You should pray," a voice said. Scott looked up to see Bishop Matthias Williams standing there, Rashada's father, looking at him with an expression that wasn't quite condemnation, but wasn't forgiveness either. "I don't know how." "Yes, you do. Everyone knows how when they're desperate enough." The bishop sat beside him. "My daughter is in there fighting for her life because of you. Those babies might not survive because of the stress you put on her body. And yet here I am sitting with you when I should be in there with her. Why aren't you? Because they only allowed one person in the OR, and Amara has her medical proxy." Bishop Williams looked at him steadily. "But also because I thought you might need to understand something." "What?" "What it feels like to be powerless, to have no control, to only be able to wait and hope and pray." The bishop's voice was gentle but firm. "You've spent this whole marriage trying to control Rashada. Control when she had babies, control her career, control everything. And now you have no control at all. How does it feel?" "Horrible, terrifying." Scott's voice broke. "I might lose them all. Now you understand. How Rashada's felt for months, terrified, powerless, fighting. Battles you created while you stood back and judged her for not winning fast enough. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry for all of it." "Sorry's a start. But it's just words, son. Words are cheap. Actions are what matter." Bishop Williams stood. "I'm going to the chapel to pray for my daughter and my granddaughters. You can come with me or sit here alone. Your choice." Scott followed. The chapel was small and quiet. Bishop Williams knelt and began praying aloud, not churchy language, just raw, honest begging. Lord, my baby girl is in trouble. Those precious little ones are in trouble. I know you know all about it, but I'm asking anyway. Asking you to spare them, to give them strength, to bring them through this storm." Scott knelt beside him and, for the first time since childhood, prayed. "I don't deserve mercy. I know that, but they do. Rashada and those babies did nothing wrong. This is all me. So please, please let them live. I'll do anything. I'll be anything. Just don't let them die because of my mistakes." They stayed in that chapel for hours while surgeons fought for Rashada's life. Nurse Keisha Albright watched through the NICU glass as two tiny babies fought for every breath. She'd seen hundreds of preemies in her career, but something about these two broke her heart in new ways. Such little fighters. Born too soon because their father was a fool and their mother loved them enough to sacrifice everything. A man appeared beside her. Rashada's colleague from the hospital, Dr. Hassan El-Amin. "How are they?" he asked quietly. "Alive, barely 3 pounds and 2 pounds. Lungs underdeveloped, on ventilators and monitors and every intervention we have." Keisha shook her head. "But they're fighting. Lord, they're fighting hard. And can I see them? Just for a moment?" Keisha studied him. She knew about Hassan's friendship with Rashada, knew he'd been supportive through her fertility struggles, knew he was one of the good ones. "You can look. But Scott Boland is their father, legally. He's the one with rights here. I don't want rights. I just want to see that they're real, that they made it this far." She let him approach the incubators. He stood there staring at those impossibly small babies, and Keisha saw tears stream down his face. "She fought so hard for you," he whispered to the babies through the glass. "Your mother is the strongest woman I know. You inherited that strength. So you keep fighting, you hear me? Keep fighting for her." Scott appeared in the hallway then, followed by Bishop Williams. He saw Hassan standing by his daughters, and something dark flashed across his face. "What are you doing here?" Checking on colleagues, on friends." Hassan didn't back down. "Rashada's been through hell. I wanted to make sure her babies were okay." "My babies?" "Yes, your babies that she nearly died bringing into the world, while you waited in a lobby because the medical team didn't trust you near her. You have no right. Enough." Keisha stepped between them. "Both of you. Those babies don't need this energy. And Rashada's still in surgery fighting for her life. So take your testosterone elsewhere." Scott sagged against the wall. "How is she? Has anyone told me anything?" "Oh, not my place to say. You're not on her medical proxy list." Keisha's voice was sharp. "You gave up that right when you treated her the way you did. She's my wife." She's our patient." "And right now she's critical." The words hit Scott like a physical blow. He slid down the wall until he was sitting on the floor, and Keisha watched him crumble. She'd seen a lot in her years as a nurse. Seen families torn apart and remade. Seen love and hate and everything in between. But watching Scott Boland finally understand what he'd done, that was something new. 6 hours after entering the OR, Rashada woke up to beeping monitors and blinding pain. "Easy?" Amara's voice came from beside her. "Don't try to move. You're in recovery. My babies, alive, both alive. In the NICU, on ventilators, but alive. Zora and Amina. I didn't name them, I did. Zora means dawn, and Amina means trustworthy. They came at dawn, and I trust they're going to make it." Amara gripped her hand. "You scared me, Rashada. You coded twice. We almost lost you. But I'm here. Yeah, you're here. And you have 2 daughters who need you to get stronger. I want to see them. Soon. You need to stabilize first." "But Rashada," Amara's voice broke. "They're so small, so fragile. The doctors say the next 72 hours are critical. I need to see them now." "You can barely sit up." "I don't care. Those are my babies. I need to see my babies." It took another 3 hours and a lot of arguing, but finally they wheeled Rashada's bed to the NICU. She pressed her face to the incubator glass and stared at her daughters. So tiny, so impossibly tiny. Covered in wires and tubes, their little chests rising and falling with mechanical precision. "Zora," she whispered, touching the glass of the first incubator. "Amina, I'm here, babies. Mama's here." The nurse on duty, Keisha, came over with a gentle expression. Want to hold them? Can I? Skin-to-skin contact is good for preemies. We'll have to be very careful, but yes. They lifted Zora first, and Rashada felt her daughter's tiny weight against her chest. No bigger than a doll. So fragile she seemed made of glass and hope. "Hi, sweet girl," Rashada whispered, tears streaming down her face. "I'm your mama. I love you so much. You keep fighting, okay? You're a fighter like me." Then Amina, even tinier, even more fragile. Both her daughters against her chest, breathing with her breath, living despite impossible odds. Scott appeared in the doorway but didn't approach. Just stood there watching his family through the glass. Keisha went to him. "Those babies have been fighting since conception," she said quietly. "Where were you? They don't know your voice, don't know your touch. You're a stranger to your own children." The words destroyed him. Keisha watched him sink into a chair and finally, let himself feel the full weight of what he'd done. Good, she thought. About time. Chapter 7, The Reckoning. The NICU became Rashada's world. She practically lived in that sterile room, watching monitors, counting breaths, willing her daughters to survive. The doctors had moved her to a room in the hospital, refusing to discharge her while she was still recovering, and the babies were critical. Zora and Amina spent 6 weeks fighting for every breath. 6 weeks of crises and victories and setbacks that aged Rashada years. Scott was allowed supervised visits. Amara's rules and the hospital staff enforced them rigidly. He could see his daughters for 10 minutes at a time, never alone, never without oversight. "Because they're your daughters too. I won't keep them from you, no matter how much I want to." Rashada was holding Zora against her chest, skin to skin. "But I also won't forget what you did. How you got us here." He tried everything to make amends. Flowers appeared daily, she gave them to the nurses. Expensive gifts, she donated them to the hospital charity. Apology letters, she burned them unread. This new Rashada was harder, sharper, protective in ways that bordered on feral. Meanwhile, Scott's world continued crumbling. His business was in ruins, forcing him to sell controlling interest just to keep it afloat. His reputation was demolished. Everyone knew what he'd done, and the court of public opinion had convicted him. One afternoon, Terence visited with his wife Nia and their kids. His daughter Imani, wise beyond her years, stood by the incubator staring at her tiny cousins. "They're so small," she whispered. "Will they be okay?" "I hope so, sweetheart," Rashada said. "My daddy says your husband was mean to you, that he made you sad." "He did make me sad, very sad. My daddy would never make my mommy sad on purpose. He says love means being kind, even when it's hard." Imani looked at her with those serious eyes. "Doesn't your husband know that?" He's learning, very slowly." Later, Scott appeared for his supervised visit. Imani watched him attempt to interact with Zora, fumbling with the tiny diaper, awkward with his own daughter. "You're doing it wrong," Imani announced. "Here, my daddy taught me when my baby brother was born." And this child, barely 10 years old, showed Scott Boland how to change a diaper properly. "Thank you," Scott said quietly. "You're welcome, but you should know how to do this already. You're their daddy." She said it matter-of-factly, without judgment, which somehow made it worse. "My daddy knew everything before my brother was born. He practiced and learned and asked questions." After she left, Scott sat in the chair beside Rashada's bed. "A child just shamed me into realizing I haven't prepared for anything. I don't know how to change diapers or make bottles or any of it." "No, you were too busy planning nannies and nurseries and maintaining control." Rashada adjusted Amina's monitor. "Being a parent isn't about logistics, Scott. It's about showing up. Something you've never been good at. I'm trying to show up now. You're showing up because you have no choice. Your business is gone. Your reputation is destroyed. You have nothing else left but these babies. But that's not real commitment. That's desperation." Dr. Hassan El Amin visited regularly, bringing Rashada medical journals to read, updates from the hospital, conversation about anything other than her shattered life. His presence was comfort without expectation, support without demands. Scott noticed. He's a friend. A real one. Someone who supported me without asking for anything in return. Rashada met his eyes. Novel concept, I know. The weeks blurred together. Zora reached 4 pounds and graduated from the ventilator. Amina struggled more. Her lungs stubborn, but slowly, painfully, she improved. One evening, Scott appeared outside, visiting hours. I met with a therapist today. First session. She specializes in people who've destroyed their marriages through control and abuse. She asked me to describe you, to tell her who you are beyond my wife. His voice cracked. After an hour, I'd barely said anything. Your profession, where you're from, basic facts, but who you are, what you love, what makes you laugh. I couldn't answer. Rashada said nothing. We've been married 5 years, and I don't know you. I never tried to know you. You were just a role to fill, a function to perform. Tears streamed down his face. I married a position, not a person, and now I've lost both. Yes, you have. Because earning those answers requires time and trust and effort. And you don't get shortcuts just because you finally realized what you lost. Rashada looked at her sleeping daughters. If you want to know me, you'll have to do what you should have done years ago. Pay attention, listen, actually see me. Scott attended parenting classes, learned to change diapers, mix formula, read baby cues. He showed up for every allowed visit and followed every rule without complaint. Rashada watched his transformation with wary skepticism. The babies turned 2 months old, corrected age, still tiny but growing. The doctors started talking about discharge within weeks if they continued improving. I can't go back to that penthouse, she told Amara. I can't live with him. Then, don't. You and the babies can stay with Terence and Nia. They've already offered. Rashada made her decision. She'd move in with her brother's family. Scott could have visitation, could be part of the girls' lives, but the marriage was over in every way that mattered. When she told him, he didn't fight. I understand. I'll support whatever you need for the girls. 3 months after their traumatic birth, Zora and Amina came home to Terence and Nia's warm, chaotic house full of cousins and laughter and love. Scott had sold the penthouse, moved to a modest apartment. He visited every weekend, supervised at first, then gradually unsupervised, as he proved he could be trusted. One evening, Rashada sat in the nursery watching Hassan read to the twins. He'd stop by after his shift, bringing dinner and conversation, and that steady support she'd come to depend on. Zora smiled at him, her first real smile, bright and beautiful. She smiled. Hassan's joy was infectious. Did you see that? She smiled. Scott arrived for his visit and saw through the doorway, Hassan holding Amina, Rashada laughing, the babies happy and engaged with this man who wasn't their father. The jealousy that crossed his face was raw and ugly, but then he caught himself, breathed deeply, and knocked. Scott entered and the atmosphere shifted. Hassan set Amina down gently and left. Scott sat in the chair and reached for Zora. She fussed, unfamiliar with him, reaching instead for Rashada. She doesn't know me, Scott said quietly. My own daughter doesn't know me. Then visit more. Be consistent. Babies need time. I know. And I'll regret it for the rest of my life. He finally got Zora to settle in his arms. But I'm trying. I'm going to keep trying, even if it takes forever, even if you never forgive me. I'll keep showing up. Rashada watched him hold their daughter with awkward tenderness. Watched Zora slowly relax into his chest. Good, she said quietly. Because Zora and Amina deserve a father who shows up. Whether or not I forgive you is irrelevant. Over the next months, Scott did show up. Every weekend, then twice a week, then whenever Rashada allowed. He learned their schedules, their favorite lullabies, which twin liked which stuffed animal. He wasn't perfect. He still fumbled, still made mistakes, but he kept trying. And despite everything, Rashada found herself softening slightly, not forgiving, Not forgetting, just acknowledging the effort. Chapter 8. The Stranger in the Mirror. The twins turned 1 year old, corrected age, healthy and thriving against all odds. Rashada organized a small party at Terence's house, surrounded by family who'd supported her through the darkest time. Scott was invited, of course. He arrived with thoughtful gifts. Nothing excessive, just age-appropriate toys he'd clearly researched. He played with the girls, helped clean up without being asked, stayed in his lane. Amara watched him with suspicious eyes. He's different. He's trying, Rashada corrected. Different would mean the change is permanent. This could still be an act. You don't believe that? I don't know what I believe anymore. That evening, after the party ended and guests had left, Scott helped Rashada bathe the twins. It was the first time they'd done anything parental together without supervision. Zora loves the water, Scott said, laughing as their daughter splashed enthusiastically. Just like you said she would. You remembered. I've been listening. Trying to remember every detail you share. He gently washed Zora's hair while Rashada handled Amina. I know Amina needs her purple blanket to sleep. That Zora won't eat unless the room is quiet. That they both calm down when you sing that song your mother used to sing to you. My mother's been dead since I was 15. I know. You told me once, early in our marriage. I didn't pay attention then. I'm paying attention now. They got the girls dried and dressed in matching pajamas, a gift from Nia. Scott attempted to brush Zora's curly hair and got tangled. Here, Rashada said, taking the brush. You have to be gentle. Use your fingers first to detangle. Like this? Yes, exactly like that. The moment was so normal, so domestic, so achingly like what she'd wanted their marriage to be. Rashada felt tears prick her eyes. What's wrong? Scott asked, concerned. Nothing. Everything. I don't know. She finished with Zora's hair and set her down. It's just, this is what I wanted. Co-parenting, partnership, working together for them. Is it enough? For you? It has to be. Scott was quiet for a moment. The therapist asked me what I wanted, long-term, if I could have anything. What did you say? That I wanted my family back. Not the control, not the ultimatums, just this, you and me and the girls. Being a team. That ship sailed, Scott. I know. But I can still want it, still work toward being worthy of it, even if I never get it back. He left shortly after, and Rashada sat in the quiet nursery, watching her daughters sleep. Terence found her there an hour later. You okay, sis? I don't know. Scott's changing, or he's pretending really well. Either way, it's messing with my head. What does your gut say? My gut says I'm too tired to trust it. My gut got me into this mess in the first place. Your gut told you to marry a man who seemed passionate and driven. That's not wrong. He just turned out to be obsessive and controlling instead. That's on him, not you. Terence sat beside her. But I'll tell you what I see. I see a man who's lost everything and is scrambling to build something real from the ashes. Is it too late? Maybe, but at least he's trying. Trying isn't enough. No, but it's something. And those girls deserve a father who tries. That night, Rashada couldn't sleep. She pulled out her laptop and started researching co-parenting strategies, custody arrangements, how to build healthy relationships with ex-spouses. Because that's what Scott was, functionally. Her ex, the father of her children. Someone she'd have to deal with for the rest of her life. A message appeared on her screen. Hassan, checking in like he often did. How was the party? Good, overwhelming, the girls loved it. And how are you? Confused. Scott's different, and I don't know if I'm seeing real change or just wishful thinking. Trust your instincts. You're one of the smartest people I know. My instincts led me to marry him in the first place. Your instincts also led you to save countless lives and survive impossible circumstances. Trust them. They messaged back and forth for an hour, and Rashada felt some of her tension ease. Hassan was safe, uncomplicated, just a friend who cared without demanding anything. But lately, she'd started wondering if it could be more. Then she'd remember she was still married. Still legally bound to Scott, still trapped in a situation she couldn't quite escape. The next months passed in a blur of milestones. The girls started crawling, then pulling themselves up. Their personalities emerged. Zora bold and adventurous, Amina cautious and thoughtful. Scott documented everything during his visits, taking photos and videos, asking questions, engaging fully in their lives. Rashada got offered a modified position at the hospital, part-time surgical consulting, research-focused, flexible hours. She accepted eagerly, grateful to reclaim some of her professional identity. Hassan was supportive, helping her adjust her schedule, covering when she needed to leave early for the twins. Their friendship deepened, becoming something both of them acknowledged but neither acted on. One evening, after a particularly long day, Hassan walked her to her car. "Can I ask you something?" he said. "Oh, of course. Are you happy? Like actually happy? Or are you just surviving?" Rashada considered the question. "I'm content. The girls are healthy. I have family support. My career's back, even if it's different. That's more than I thought I'd have a year ago. But happy? Dr. Time, I don't know if I remember how to be happy. The past 2 years rewired something in me. I'm not sure I can get back to who I was. Maybe you're not supposed to go back. Maybe you're supposed to become someone new. And who would that be? Someone who knows her worth, who doesn't settle for anything less than she deserves, who builds a life on her own terms." They stood by her car in the parking garage, and Rashada saw something in Hassan's eyes that made her breath catch. Hassan, I know. You're still married. You're figuring things out. I'm not trying to complicate your life." He stepped back. "I just want you to know, when you're ready, if you're ever ready, there are people who see you, who value you, who would never give you ultimatums or deadlines. I'll remember that." She drove home with her heart heavy. Another choice, another complication in a life already full of them. When she walked into Terence's house, she found Scott there, surprising her. He was on the floor with the twins, building a tower of blocks that Zora kept knocking down with gleeful chaos. "What are you doing here?" Rashada asked. "It's not your visitation day," Terence called. "Said you had a long day and might need backup. I hope that's okay." Yeah, it's okay." She watched him play with their daughters, gentle and patient, and something shifted in her chest. He'd sold his company, moved to a modest life, spent a year proving he could change, and here he was, showing up on a random weeknight because her brother said she needed help. "Have you eaten?" Scott asked. "I brought dinner. Nothing fancy, just that Thai place you like. You remembered my favorite restaurant. I remember everything you've told me this past year. I write it down so I don't forget again." Rashada felt tears sting her eyes.
Why? Why now?
"Why couldn't you have been this person before?" "Because I was broken, poisoned by my upbringing, too arrogant to see what I had." He stood, leaving the twins to their blocks. "I'm still broken, Rashada, still working through it with therapy. But I'm trying to build something better from the pieces. I don't know if I can ever trust you again. I know. And I'll spend the rest of my life earning it anyway." That night, after Scott left and the girls were asleep, Rashada stood in front of the bathroom mirror and stared at her reflection. Who was this woman? She'd been Dr. Rashada Williams, brilliant surgeon. Then Mrs. Rashada Williams Boland, desperate wife. Then traumatized mother fighting for her baby's survival. Now she was something undefined, somewhere between married and divorced, between hating Scott and seeing his humanity, between the safety of Hassan's uncomplicated affection and the complicated history with her husband. She needed to make a choice. But which one? And how would she know if it was right? Chapter 9. The Long Road. The moment of reckoning came on a random Tuesday afternoon. Rashada was at the park with the twins when she saw Scott arrive with another man, his therapist, she realized. "I hope this is okay," Scott said, approaching cautiously. "Dr. Burke suggested I introduce him to the girls. Said it might help my progress to have him understand the stakes." "That's fine." Dr. Burke was a kind-faced older man who watched Scott interact with Zora and Amina with professional interest. He talks about them constantly, Dr. Burke said to Rashada while Scott was pushing the girls on the swings. Every session, their milestones, their personalities, how he can be better for them. That's good. I guess, Ms. Williams, I normally don't do this, but I feel you should know. I've been treating people for 4 decades. I've seen a lot of people claim they want to change. Very few actually do the work. He paused. Scott is doing the work. Real, painful, transformative work. What are you saying? I'm saying his transformation is genuine. Whether you choose to trust it is entirely your decision. But from a clinical perspective, he's a different man than the one who started therapy. Rashada watched Scott laugh as Amina kicked her legs, demanding to go higher. Watched him check on Zora, who was getting fussy. Watched him be a father. How do I know it'll last? You don't. Change requires ongoing effort. But he's committed to that effort. He's building infrastructure, therapy, support groups, accountability partners. He's not just white-knuckling it. After Dr. Burke left, Rashada sat with Scott on a park bench while the girls played nearby. Your therapist ambushed me, she said. He what? I told him not to. It's fine. He said you're making real progress. I am, or I'm trying to. Scott watched Zora chase a butterfly. I've been attending a group for people who've abused their spouses. That's what I did, you know. The ultimatum, the control, the emotional manipulation. It was abuse. I know. I didn't, or I did. But I convinced myself it was normal. That it was how marriages worked. That my mother's bitterness and my father's regrets were just background noise I could ignore. And now? Now I understand I was perpetuating generational trauma, repeating patterns I didn't even know I'd learned. And I'm trying to break the cycle so Zora and Amina never experience what I put you through. They sat in silence, watching their daughters play. Hassan proposed, Rashada said suddenly. Scott's entire body tensed. What did you say? I said I needed time, that I'm still married to you, that I'm not ready for anything new, but you're considering it. I don't know what I'm considering. Hassan is kind and supportive and uncomplicated. He's safe, and I'm not? No, Scott, you're not safe. You're the man who broke me and is slowly rebuilding me. Your ongoing work and constant questions and never knowing if today's the day you revert to who you were. Is that a no to Hassan? Or a no to me? It's a I don't know to everything. I don't know how to forgive you. I don't know if I should give you another chance. I don't know if Hassan is a real option or just a fantasy of what easy could look like. Scott was quiet for a long moment. Then he pulled something from his pocket, divorce papers. I had my lawyer draft these. They're extremely generous to you. Full custody with liberal visitation for me. The house in the suburbs I just bought goes to you and the girls. Financial support far beyond what's required. Everything you could possibly need. Rashada stared at the papers. Why? Because I love you. And because love means setting you free to choose without pressure or ultimatums or deadlines. His voice cracked. I gave you 1 year to have a baby, or I'd divorce you. Now I'm giving you forever to decide if I deserve a second chance. And if the answer is no, if you want Hassan or just want to be alone or whatever you want, these papers make that possible. You're not fighting for us? I've been fighting for us for a year, showing up, changing, trying. But fighting doesn't mean trapping you. It means loving you enough to let you choose freely. He set the papers on the bench between them. Sign them tomorrow or in 10 years. It's your choice. Just know that I'll be here, being the best father I can be, being whatever kind of friend or co-parent you need, whether you sign them or not. Zora ran over, demanding to be picked up. Scott lifted her, and she patted his cheeks with sticky hands. Dada, she said clearly, her first real word directed at him. Scott's eyes filled with tears. Yeah, baby girl, I'm your Dada, and I'm so sorry I almost missed this. Almost missed everything. That night, Rashada sat with the divorce papers in front of her. Freedom, right there in legal language. The ability to move on, to choose Hassan, to build something new without the baggage of her first marriage. She could sign them. Should sign them, probably, but her hand wouldn't pick up the pen, because somewhere in the past year, watching Scott transform from the man who'd destroyed her into someone genuinely trying to be better, something had shifted. Not forgiveness, not trust, but possibility. The possibility that people could change, that mistakes could be learned from, that love could exist in different forms than she'd imagined. Hassan represented safety, a fresh start, uncomplicated affection. Scott represented risk, hard work, a man who'd hurt her, but was dedicating his life to making amends. Neither choice was wrong. Neither was safe. She left the papers unsigned and went to bed, no closer to knowing what she wanted. The weeks that followed brought clarity in unexpected ways. Hassan took her to dinner, kissed her goodnight, and Rashada felt nothing. Affection, yes. Gratitude for his friendship, but no spark, no passion, no sense that this was right. "I can't," she told him the next day. "You deserve someone who's all in. I'm still too tangled up in my past, with Scott, with myself, with who I used to be and who I'm becoming. I need to figure that out before I can offer anyone a real relationship." Hassan accepted with grace, and their friendship survived. But Rashada felt relief more than sadness, which told her everything she needed to know. Meanwhile, Scott continued showing up, every weekend with the girls, attending their pediatrician appointments, helping when Rashada was overwhelmed. Never pushing, never demanding, just consistently present. One evening, Rashada found herself telling him about a difficult surgery at the hospital. They sat in Terence's kitchen while the twins napped, and Scott listened with genuine interest. "How did it turn out?" he asked. "Successfully, but it was close. The parents were terrified, and I had to be confident when I felt anything but." That's what makes you an incredible surgeon. The ability to project confidence while feeling fear. "When did you start understanding me?" "When I started listening. Actually listening, not just waiting for my turn to talk." They talked for 2 hours about her work, her research, her hopes to publish again. Scott asked questions, remembered details, engaged like a partner instead of a critic. "I miss this," Rashada admitted. "Having someone to talk to about work, about things that matter to me beyond the twins. I miss it too. Miss knowing you. Miss being someone you'd want to share with. You're getting there, slowly. Slowly is fine. I'll take slowly over never." The twins turned 2 years old. Healthy, thriving, perfect little humans who'd beaten every odd. Rashada threw them a huge party, inviting everyone who'd supported her through the dark times. Scott was there, of course, but so was Hassan, Amara, Terence's whole family, her father, colleagues from the hospital, her tribe, her chosen family, the people who'd caught her when she fell. At one point, Rashada found herself watching Scott play with the girls. He'd grown his hair out slightly, dressed more casually, laughed more easily. This version of him was so different from the man she'd married. Bishop Williams appeared beside her. "That boy's done real work on himself." "I know. Question is, has he done enough? For you?" "I don't know, Daddy. How do you measure enough? How do you know when to trust again?" "You don't know. You just decide. Either you believe people can change and you give him a real chance, or you don't, and you move on. But this limbo you're in, it's not fair to either of you. What would you do? Me? I'd kill him for what he did to my baby girl." Bishop Williams smiled slightly. "But then I'd probably forgive him eventually, because I've seen true repentance, and he's showing it. But forgiveness doesn't mean reconciliation. Those are separate choices." That night, after everyone left and the twins were asleep, Rashada pulled out the divorce papers again. Still unsigned. Still waiting. She thought about Scott's words. "I'm giving you forever to decide." Forever was a long time, but maybe she didn't need forever. Maybe she just needed to trust herself to make a choice and live with it. She picked up her phone and texted Scott. "Can we talk? Tomorrow, just us." His response was immediate. "Anytime, anywhere, I'll be there." Rashada set down the phone and looked at her sleeping daughters. Whatever she decided would shape their futures too. No pressure, she thought wryly. Just the most important decision of her life. No big deal at all. Chapter 10. The Long Forgiveness. 3 years had passed since Scott delivered his ultimatum. 3 years of hell and hope, destruction and reconstruction, death and rebirth. Rashada sat across from him in a quiet coffee shop, the divorce papers between them like a bomb waiting to explode. "I read these finally," she said. "Really read them. And they're incredibly generous. More than fair. You're giving me everything. I owe you everything. It's the least I can do." She pushed the papers back toward him. "I'm not signing them." Hope flared in his eyes, quickly suppressed. "Why not?" "Because I realized something. You gave me 1 year to give you a baby or you'd divorce me. I gave you 2 daughters in 9 months and nearly died doing it." She met his gaze steadily. "You wanted heirs. I wanted partners. You saw me as a womb. I am a woman. You issued an ultimatum. I'm issuing something different." "What?" "And a truth. The truth that people can change if they do the work. That accountability matters more than perfection. That love isn't about perfect beginnings. It's about showing up for every difficult middle." Scott's hands trembled. "What are you saying?" "And I'm saying I don't owe you forgiveness. You haven't earned my trust back. You might never earn it fully. But Zora asked me last week where her daddy lives. And Amina cries every Sunday when you leave. And I realized I don't need to forgive you to co-parent effectively. I don't need to trust you completely to acknowledge you've changed. I don't understand." Rashada took a deep breath. "I'm not taking you back romantically. That chapter is closed. The marriage we had died the night you gave me that ultimatum, and no amount of work brings back the dead. But I'm not divorcing you either, because our daughters deserve to see what happens when broken people choose to build something new. Not a marriage, not a romance, but a partnership built on mutual respect and shared purpose. What does that look like?" "I don't know yet. We'll figure it out together. Maybe we live separately forever. Maybe we become friends who co-parent exceptionally well. Maybe in 10 years, after enough proof, we try again as different people. You'd consider that? Eventually? Eventually, maybe, if you continue the work. If you prove this change is permanent. If you show our daughters what it means to fall and stand back up with integrity." She leaned forward. "I'm not giving you another chance, Scott. I'm giving myself permission to see you as human, flawed, capable of growth." Scott pulled out the papers himself and tore them in half. "What are you doing?" Rashada asked, startled. "I don't want to be legally bound to you out of obligation. I want to earn my place in your life every single day. So I'm getting divorced, officially, so that if you ever choose to let me back in, it's a genuine choice." He pulled out different papers. "Custody agreement, generous visitation, financial support. We can be divorced and still co-parent. Still figure out what we're building." Rashada stared at him. "You'd give up the marriage? Voluntarily?" "The marriage died already. You said it yourself. I'm just making it official, so we can both be free to choose what comes next." 3 months later, the divorce was finalized. They stood in the courthouse and ended their marriage with more respect than they'd had in it. They developed a routine. Scott had the girls every other weekend and one weeknight. They attended appointments together, celebrated milestones as a team, made decisions jointly. Rashada went back to surgery part-time, published research that made waves in pediatric cardiology, reclaimed her professional identity piece by piece. Scott rebuilt his career modestly, teaching ethics at the university. He spoke openly about his failures, about toxic patterns, helped other men recognize abusive behavior. They weren't friends exactly, but they were something. 2 years post-divorce, Rashada attended Scott's graduation from his intensive therapy program. She sat in the audience and watched him accept his certificate. "I destroyed my marriage through arrogance and control," he said to the room. "I gave my wife an ultimatum that nearly killed her and our daughters. And I've spent years learning that love isn't about deadlines and demands. It's about showing up even when you're not sure you're wanted. After the ceremony, they picked up the girls together. In the car, Rashada said, "I'm proud of you. For the work you've done. Thank you. That means everything." At Terence's house, the girls were playing with their cousins. Zora ran up, demanding both parents pick her up simultaneously. Amina wanted to show them a picture she'd drawn. "It's our family," she announced proudly. The picture showed stick figures, 2 adults, 2 little girls, and a dog they didn't have. "Are we a family?" Scott asked quietly later, after they dropped the girls off. "We're something. A family, but not in traditional ways. Co-parents who respect each other, people working toward better. Is there room for more? Eventually? Ask me in another year. After more therapy, more proof, more time." 5 years after the ultimatum, Rashada stood in her kitchen watching Scott teach Zora and Amina how to make pancakes. He visited often now, not just for scheduled time, but casually, as a friend who'd earned his place. "Higher, Daddy," Amina demanded, wanting to flip the pancake. The pancake landed perfectly. "I did it!" Rashada's phone buzzed. "Hassan, how are you? Been thinking about you." They'd remained friends. He'd moved on, was dating someone, seemed happy. She texted back, "Good, really good. The girls are thriving." That evening, after Scott left and the girls were in bed, Rashada called him. "Hey," he answered. "Everything okay?" "Yeah, I wanted to tell you something. I'm ready to try. Not to get back together, not to jump into anything, but to see if there's something worth building from who we've become." Silence. Then, "Are you sure?" "No, but I'm sure that you've earned the chance to find out." "When can I take you to dinner? Properly, like a first date?" "Next weekend. The girls will be with Terence. I'll plan something special, but not too special. Just right." They hung up, and Rashada sat under the stars feeling terrified and hopeful in equal measure. This wasn't a fairy tale ending. There was no guarantee this would work. Scott might relapse. She might discover trust was impossible, but there was possibility. The hope that people who do the work can find grace, not forgiveness that erases the past, but the harder kind, forgiveness that acknowledges pain and chooses to move forward anyway. Scott Boland once demanded a baby in 1 year or threatened divorce. Rashada Williams gave him twins in 9 months and shattered his entire world, not with her compliance, but with her strength. She didn't need a year to prove her worth. She needed a lifetime to teach him his. And in the end, the greatest legacy wasn't the empire he'd built or the daughters she'd borne. It was the man he became and the woman who never stopped being herself, even when the world demanded otherwise. Some stories end with "I do." This one ends with "I'll try." And sometimes that's the most honest vow of all. The end,